Fox News host Mark Levin has been doing a series of Sunday night interviews with the failed former President Donald Trump, but last night's was so absurd that Levin couldn't possibly save Trump when Trump raises a conspiracy theory so insane that it obviously doesn't make any sense based on the facts, but it is such a verbal ink blot that you couldn't possibly clean it up. The topic was the pandemic and Chinese tariffs. And Trump's claim is that China made and released COVID as punishment to Trump and the United States of America because Trump charged China so much money in tariffs, which ignores the fact that Trump still doesn't understand how tariffs work. Listen to this. Mark Levin can't possibly do anything with this to save Trump.
China, I was probably the first one. I said it came from the lab in Wuhan. I knew that. For one thing, you saw body bags all over the place around that lab. You know, there were body bags all over that area, and nobody talks about it. But
Levin is trying to stay as still as possible to maybe blend into the background and not even be visible.
In Wuhan, you had, through satellite pictures and other things, you had pictures, body bags all over the place. And you could see little lines, you know, from way up, but they couldn't be anything else. But I said, and I've said right from the beginning, it was the lab in Wuhan. It got out. It got out of the lab. I think it was incompetence. I really believe it was incompetence. More, you know, people said, I was charging China so much money in tariffs and taxes that a lot of people said they did it to get me out. But we did great in that election. We did.
Understand what Trump is saying. OK, think about how bonkers this is. The tariffs that he was charging China angered them so much that China made and released COVID, mostly killing people in other countries. Like, remember, most of the deaths were not in the United States, in order to get Trump back. Now, there's a couple little problems with this. One is that's not how tariffs work. Trump still doesn't get that when you put tariffs on Chinese products imported to the United States, American companies pay the tariffs. You are charging American companies more. You're not charging China. So it makes no sense on principle. But of course, of the 6.8 million official COVID deaths only, and I say only like it's not a lot, it's an insane number, but the point is proportionately, of the 6.8 million COVID deaths, only 1.1 million were in the United States. So China, to get Trump back for tariffs that they didn't actually pay, did something to kill 5.7 million people in other countries, including their own, in order to kill some people in the U.S., many after Trump left office, as punishment for Trump's tariffs, which they didn't pay. This is so stunning, stunningly stupid, that even Mark Levin says nothing and is just motionless like a statue. Trump then brings up Abraham Lincoln and says that he has actually been treated worse than Abraham Lincoln. Remember, Abraham Lincoln was assassinated.
Say that Andrew Jackson was the most vilified president. It was his wife died during this thing, and they said such horrible things. And he had a very tough presidency. He was a very good president. He was a great general and a good president. Abraham Lincoln, they say, was, you know, he had a civil war going.
They say it?
On, all right. But Abraham Lincoln was just vilified. But now they say Trump got treated the worst of all.
Really?
Because what they did is they came up with phony stuff. Russia, Russia, Russia. It was all hoaxes. The Mueller witch hunt, which turned out to be no collusion. You know, after 2.5 years, no collusion. I could have told them that the first day. And they had the laptop. They could have figured that out, because on the laptop, if you look at it, you could have figured that out easy. But there's never been anything. Despite that, people...
Is this the most demented, malignant narcissist public figure of all time? They say that Trump was treated worse than Lincoln. Lincoln was shot in the head and killed. Trump was investigated for pretty obvious wrongdoing. And then Trump claims that he sent former German Chancellor Angela Merkel a white flag of surrender to symbolize Germany, I guess, surrendering to Russia.
I didn't allow Germany to get away with what they were doing. I sent Angela Merkel a white flag of surrender because I said, when you made the deal with Putin, you're getting 68% of your energy from somebody that you've had numerous wars with, world wars. I said, So I'm going to give you the white flag. This way you don't have to look it up when you surrender to Russia someday.
Yeah. It'd be like the U.S. doing business with Germany, even though in the past we were on opposing sides of a war. Oh, wait a second. We do that all the time. What kind of an argument is that?
And if you remember, I made a speech at the United Nations, and the Russian delegation
That's when everybody laughed.
thought it was extremely funny when I mentioned that they shouldn't be doing it. A year later, most of those guys were fired.
It was actually the entire room that was laughing at Trump because that speech was so ridiculous. Lastly, Trump takes credit for the Olympics in South Korea being a sellout.
It started off rough. Remember that? I was saying, Little Rocket Man, you're not going to get on. And I was saying, Little Rocket Man, and he was saying, I've got a red button on my desk and I'm willing to use it. And I say, I have a red button too, and mine's bigger and mine works. And all sorts of things. It was very nasty. And then all of a sudden we get a phone call. They want to meet. And then I made the Olympics successful. Remember, in South Korea, they were having the Olympics in 9 months. And nobody was buying a ticket because they didn't want to have missiles shot at them during the Olympic opening ceremonies.
Understand what Trump is saying. He's saying the South Korean Olympics would have been a failure had he not met with North Korean dictator Kim Jong-un, because people would have been scared of missile attacks during the Olympics in South Korea. But thanks to Trump meeting with Kim Jong-un, where nothing was accomplished, by the way, that made the South Korean Olympics popular. This is a good time to mention, I mentioned it earlier in the show. Bradley Hope has a new book called The Rebel in the Kingdom. It's not about Trump. It's actually about an activist related to North Korea. Fascinating book, extremely well researched. But because of the timing of when the book takes place, there's a lot in the book that explains Trump's total failure when it comes to North Korea. I will admit, I learned in the book that some of Trump's instincts from the deal-making business world theoretically could have actually been effective with Kim Jong-un. They weren't, because Trump's execution was a disaster. And it really built up a more nuanced understanding for me of Trump dealing with North Korea. But if you really want to understand, again, the book is not mostly about it, but the story will give you an understanding of Trump's failures with North Korea and Kim Jong-un. Get the book, The Rebel in the Kingdom by Bradley Hope. I just finished reading it yesterday. By now, all of us know how creepy it is to talk to a friend about something and then get ads that are related. When you use a free email service from a big tech corporation, your emails are scanned, even if you're emailing your spouse or your doctor, which is why I recommend StartMail, the email service that never scans or analyzes your email. Our sponsor, StartMail, also lets you create unlimited email address aliases, so you don't even have to give out your real email address. This protects you from spam and phishing attacks. Phishing attacks are becoming way more sophisticated with the rise of ChatGPT, by the way. StartMail lets you encrypt any email you send, even if the recipient isn't using encryption. Unlike the big tech email services who store even your deleted emails, when you delete an email in StartMail, it is gone. Migrating from your current email service to StartMail is just a few clicks. So what are you waiting for? Stop letting big tech corporations spy on your email. My audience gets 50% off your first year at startmail.com/Pacman. The link is down below.